Welcome to the Sunday Times Politics Weekly, where we talk about the big political stories of the week. And we talk to people who make the news, people who shape the politics of our country. In this episode, we're talking to the Minister of Correctional Services, Dr. Pieter Groenewald.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things.
We will not be bullied.
Like we told mirrors to US, we're not just beggars.
The president did want them to say, if you're going to fire, we'll take it as a declaration of war.
I can't be threatened by Zuma. I defeated Zuma.
You're dealing with Jacob Zuma. Every stage is a theater for him.
We're not sending help to criminals. We're going to smoke them out. They will come out.
There has not been agreement in terms of parties in the executive.
The executive must come here.
The people of Palestine, they're denied the right to enjoy the freedoms we so love.
Hey, welcome to the Politics Weekly, Minister.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, and it's a privilege to talk to you and the people.
Yes, and I just thought that we should start because I looked at your background and at your CV, and I see that you didn't actually come from a political family as such. How did you segue into politics?
Well, what happened, you're quite right. None of my family actually were in politics as such. But what happened is that in the early 80s, I got interested in politics. And you will remember we started with the 1977 constitutional proposals, where the then government wanted to change the constitution. And that actually caught my eye, and I studied that. And from the start, my view and opinion was that, yes, we must amend the constitution. And yes, we can bring in the colored people or the brown people in the system, as well as the Indian people. But then the question remained, what about the black people of South Africa? And they couldn't address that matter.
So, and this is around when?
That was just around the beginning of 1980. You'll remember we had the 1983 Constitution.
Yes.
Which then provided...
The tricameral, was it?
Exactly. That was then. And that's how I got involved in politics. So from my family side, I'm the first one at this moment in politics.
Let's come to the now in the GNU, because I think everybody's wondering whether the GNU will survive or not. What was the reasoning behind your party's decision to participate in the GNU?
That is quite an interesting matter that evolved around that, because I am on record right through the election campaign with 2024. I was asked by journalists whether I will serve in a government of national unity. And I said no. And I know that at the moment I am a compromised leader. But it was quite clearly the...
You mean a compromise leader?
In the fact that I said I will not serve in a government of national unity. But that was the policy of my party. That was the decision. We actually said when we met with the ANC in negotiations that we don't want executive positions. We put it very clearly. We wanted the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Police for myself, because I've been all my years in Parliament, I've been on the Police Portfolio Committee, and one of our members on the Finance Portfolio Committee as the chairperson. That's what we asked for. So it came as a surprise when the president phoned me that Sunday evening at 7:10 the evening and made me the offer.
And he says what? He says, Dr. Groenewald, which one would you like to have? Or I would like to offer this.
No, he said it's plain straightforward. I want to offer you the position of the Minister for Correctional Services. And I then said to him, Mr. President, you know how politics work. It's not a decision for myself to make. I have to consult with my party. Now, we have some structures. We have, for instance, the federal, management committee of the Freedom Front Plus. And we had to meet. It was an emergency meeting because, as I said, our policy was quite clear throughout the election campaign that we will not serve in a government of national unity. It was a long discussion. And yes, I can reveal it was not a consensus decision. It was a majority decision to say, let's take up the position. And the argument for that was, we said, if you want to be on a platform where you can have some influence, where you can say your say and put forward your views, then you must become part of the government of national unity. So that was the main argument and reason why we said, let's give it a chance. Let's see how it will evolve. And of course, I mean, the party can still decide that we withdraw from the government of national unity. And that, then the moment they've made such a decision, for instance, then I will resign as a Minister of Correctional Services. So it's solely in the hands of the political party, and that is how politics work.
And I know and you also are aware that some other parties who are in the GNU have spoken about having red lines, to say this far no further, and these are the non-negotiables. Your party, the Freedom Front Plus, does it operate like that? Does it have non-negotiables, while they are in the GNU?
Yes, of course. I think each and every political party has certain red lines, if you want to put it that way. And but we in the Freedom Front Plus say you must be very cautious when you make certain threats. For instance, if you say that this is the red line, then it must be the red line. So from our political view in the Freedom Front Plus, of course, if they get to a certain stage where there is a total disregard of our cultural history, say for instance, I come forward with certain legislation, then that will be a red line. And let me immediately refer, for instance, to the Bella Act, as well as the expropriation without compensation. Now, people say that's a red line. But the real fact is, those two, it was then still bills, it's now acts, were through Parliament, approved by the National Assembly before the 24 election. So it was not a matter that it is new legislation coming to the Parliament and then you draw a red line. It has already been, we objected, of course.
But it was in motion already.
Well, of course. Well, at the moment it is enacted, and it is an act, then it is an act. Now you can use your influence trying to steer the matter. But to say that if you continue with that, then we will withdraw. And that's a red line. If you say that, then you must do it. Don't make threats. And in the end, you cannot comply to that.
You cannot go through with. When you started making the point, you said we, if they do certain things which you disagree with. As things stand now, who would you say is your constituency? Who do you speak for as the Freedom Front Plus?
Well, of course, our policy is that we believe in self-determination. We do believe that minority rights must be, it is recognized by the Constitution, and it must be enhanced by acts of Parliament. And when we say that, it includes any person who is part of a minority group in South Africa. And yes, our constituency, the majority of them are Afrikaners, Afrikaans speaking, like, for instance, the brown people. But we also have black people in our party. When I was still the leader, I didn't avail myself at February this year to become leader the next term. So if you go and look, for instance, when we had our manifesto, journalists were surprised to see how many black people were there, Indian people there. We have councillors, black councillors in the Freedom Front Plus. But we say, of course, we believe in everybody must be equal. But when we say equal, we mean equal. You will get into a position because of your abilities and on merit.
Oh, you mean within the party?
I'm speaking now in the party as such. And I mean, we are outspoken to say that we are against, for instance, affirmative action, because our view is from the start, since the 1990s when it was started, 97, the equity bill, we said what should happen in South Africa is that people must get into positions on merit and ensure that we have competent people to build South Africa. We said that right out. And that is also what we in practice do in the Freedom Front Plus. So I can assure you, if there's a black councillor, and we have many brown councillors, if they're in that position, it's because it is based on merit. It's the same with women. When I became the leader in 2016, in the 2019 election, I brought in a new system of a merit system for our candidates to be placed in the certain positions on the national proportional list. And they had to write the exam. The candidates had to deliver a speech, and they got a mark for that. You add everything up. And then the candidates with the best marks are getting the top positions. And after 2019, for instance, we had women in our 9 members in, it was 10 members, 10 members in the National Assembly. And they got those positions, not because they're women, because they were in those positions on merit. They did the whole process just the same as men or any other person.
I think a lot of people who seriously want the country to progress, would argue against appointing people on the basis of merit, whether they are in the state or in a political party or anywhere, in business and everywhere. I think very few people would say, no, we want to put in people who can't do the job, But I want us to shift a bit and say issues like affirmative action would be speaking in a broad, like BEE, for example, in this broader sense, we'd be talking about transforming South African society, bringing about equality, eradicating the historical inequalities. What would be your position on that?
We say that would be a natural process because of the numbers. The majority of the people in South Africa are black people. That's a fact. So the universities opened. People had the opportunities. They obtained their degrees. You go to students. For instance, around about the around about 2009, 2010, around there. I went there, and there were programs and research. Students, black students, said they don't want affirmative action. They want to get in a position based on merit because they're worth that. They don't want to be tokens. Even in sports, they said, I don't want to be a quota player. I want to be seen as one of the players playing in that team because I'm one of the best. And that is the real feeling. Now, of course, I mean, if you go to universities now, far the majority students, I don't have the exact figures, but I can assure you that I don't think you will find a university where, say, less than 80% of the students are not black. So it's a natural process because people went through the process. They obtained degrees. They're very good and everything. And then, they enter the labor market and then people want them. And that is how you deal with that. And of course, you can assist. You can assist on a financial basis. You have NSFAS there. But I am against the fact that if there are bursaries, for instance, that you exclude white people just because they are white. Let's take medical students, for instance. They have a certain quintile point they have to obtain before they will be permitted as a medical student.
Yeah.
Now the question is, if you look, for instance, if the University of Cape Town, the quintile for white students is about 83, 84. For Indian people, it's about 76, 78, around about there. And for brown people, 74. And when it comes to black people, it's about 69, 70. Why? I think that is wrong because in fact, I see it as an insult to black people. Why do you put them on a lower standard? I think they can compete on an equal basis.
But if someone said to you that that may very well be the case, that there's a differentiation, but it is precisely because your average black person, for example, I was talking to someone about children going into university for the first time, that there will be a lot of black kids who, for example, have never owned a laptop, who have got that disadvantage, who have not had access to a whole lot of things that are taken for granted in the middle classes, that those kids need to be assisted. In other words, on potential, to be given a chance to say, because of the historical or circumstantial disadvantage, they have to be given a leg up. What would you say to people who argue like that?
I will start by saying this is 31 years down the lane from 1994. Every university has minimum standards a student have to comply to. I mean, you have children that has been born in 1994. So they now around about 30, 31 years old. So they came through the system. Then we must look at our educational system. In your schools today, you have a subject on laptops or computers. Then we must look at that. And I say that today, if you have a matriculant, it should be that they are all equal when it comes to, can I say, whether they have the knowledge to deal, for instance, with a computer or a laptop or anything like that.
But if they come from a rural area or they come from a poor township, they might not have that access.
We can talk about it. I went to a farm school. It was very rural. And I sometimes think that they are in a more beneficial position. You will be surprised that some of them are more, can I say, acquainted when it comes to laptops and that sort of thing. Of course, you will get some people. But then I ask, then there's a problem with the educational system. It doesn't matter whether you're in a rural area, whether you're in a township, whether you're in a city or whatever the case may be. There's no differentiation when it comes to the curriculum of, can I say, primary school and higher school or basic education. It should all be the same. And then it depends on the quality of the teachers. They must ensure that. So I will accept that when we started in 1994, there was a backlog. But this is 2025, and there shouldn't be like that. And that's why we said that when it comes, for instance, to affirmative action and even black economic empowerment, there should have been a sunset clause. Yes, it's an interim process. But in the end, we must say that we are all equal. It's only our merit. And if we look what is going on in our country at the moment, we need the best of the best people in South Africa to build South Africa.
How do we correct the glaring economic inequalities in South Africa? Because I hear what you're saying, that someone might say, yes, there are more opportunities than there would have been before, but the numbers suggest that the majority of the wealth in South Africa is still in the hands of white people.
Well, it depends how you want to see it. They will say the owners, the entrepreneurs. I'm not always so sure about those statistics. I must be honest about it. Because I mean that you have black companies. You have a black business council. What are they doing? They get the money. I mean, if you look at black economic empowerment, Professor Kumeri made certain figures that about 1 trillion rand has been given to black economic empowerment. But he used a figure that worries me very, very much. And that is that only about 100 people really benefited from that. Now, we can talk a lot about that, but we must create jobs because that is the main issue in South Africa. How do you do that? You do that by creating conducive circumstances where one can start a business, where you have people who wants to invest in South Africa. You get foreign investment, but also local investment. Some business people want to extend their businesses, but they don't do it at the moment. Why? Because the prospects does not look very well for them. And that is what we must try to enhance. And the reasons for people don't have good prospects for the future is, for instance, the fact about corruption, the fact about crime in South Africa, substandards. I am very worried about our educational system. And I'm talking about basic education now. Because you talk to people, they say our students, when they finish matric, they are not prepared for, firstly, certain university degrees and not for the open labor market. Because a business person, they only look for one thing. Can you do the job? And if you cannot do the job, I will find someone who can do the job.
I want us to move on to your portfolio, because we haven't even touched on your portfolio. But just to round off on this particular aspect, I'm sure you will concede that there is economic inequality in South Africa currently.
It depends how you want to see it. If you want to just go to the top, then my question is why?
To the top in what sense?
Top managers. For instance, take the IT companies. I mean, you cannot put someone there if he or she is not, equipped with the knowledge to handle certain situations. I mean, what can you do? And then I come back again, because there are brilliant people. Let me give you one thing. South African statistics said, for instance, the last 5 years, almost 1 million people has left South Africa. And you know what? The majority of those people, they are educated, they are sought after in the international arena. The majority are black people. It's not white people, it's black people. And that we must try to prevent. We must keep our best people here and creating jobs.
But the issue of the inequality, because it's inequality in terms of earnings and inequality in terms of household income, which is skewed like that, racially like that. So you would see that being addressed by what? By you saying education? Education.
Ensure proper services. The municipalities have very, very poor services. How can you expect from a child to deliver good school learning if they don't have electricity? Or if you look at the circumstances in our townships, and that I put squarely on the shoulders of our municipalities. Poor service delivery. If we just improve that, ensure that there is proper cleaning, running water, that there is enough water, there is enough electricity to provide our people, but the services to provide them. It is quick to say 95% of people have access to water. Do they? Or they say that they have water in their household. Yes, they have a tap, but there's no water in that tap. And that's a problem. We must solve those problems. That will uplift the whole mood and everyone, and will create more and better circumstances that is conducive to deliver your best.
So you wouldn't agree to an active intervention to end inequalities? Some people argue that you said 30 years after, just more than 30 years of democracy. Some people will say there are just far too many people who are still living in poverty after 30 years. That something has to be done to intervene to change it. So we don't go through another 30 years and then find nothing has changed or things have gotten better.
I agree. We must solve the problem. But how do you solve the problem? In the start of the 2000s, we had in economic growth about 4.55% growth. At the moment, we're less than 1%. So what went wrong? I mean, it was full scale as far as affirmative action is concerned and black economic empowerment. And the fact that we are having less than 1% economic growth at the moment is actually proof that those two issues had failed South Africa if they did it properly. Because let me say, for instance, black economic empowerment. It does not benefit the poor people of South Africa. It benefits, and I say BE actually stands for Black Elite Enrichment. And how does it work? And it is real example, and I said it in Parliament. Normal 3-foot fluorescent bulb for a light. If you go to a hardware store now, you can buy it for around about 70 rand. When Eskom, if they want to buy it, they pay 900 rand for it because of black economic empowerment, because you get the tender, but then the other one must eat, another one must eat, and they all have to eat, and it ends up to 900 rand. That did not benefit. It would have benefited everyone if we could use that money to create more businesses. Black, white, Indian, color, doesn't matter. They have the ability. They have the brains to do that. And then we would have solved this problem, the poor people in South Africa.
But you do agree that we do need to transform the South African society.
Of course, there's no doubt about it. I totally agree with that. But I differ on how we're going to do it, because that makes the difference.
Okay. I think let's go to your, because later on I want us to touch on the national dialogue, but further on, let's talk about your portfolio, before we run out of time, because I think it would be an injustice to have you here, and not talk about your portfolio. What would you say is the main challenge facing the prison system today?
Well, there are not one single main issue. There are at least four. The one is our budget, financial constraints. The other one is corruption. The other one is the parole system. And then I also want to say the overcrowding. Those are the four main issues, which is a huge challenge in our prisons. Now, let's start with, for instance, the overcrowding. At the moment, we have just over 107,000 sentenced prisoners in our prisons. But then we have about 57,000 remand detainees, people awaiting trial. Now, we have almost 109,000 beds available. So we can provide for the sentenced prisoners. But the remand detainees are actually the problem. And we have remand detainees awaiting trial for more than 10 years. And I say again,
what is the problem? 10 years sounds like forever.
Exactly.
Where is the problem?
Well, the problem is the criminal justice system, because they have to go back to court. And you must also remember, we cannot treat them as sentenced prisoners. There are differentiation between that, because they are still seen actually in a certain way as not guilty, innocent. So that's a huge challenge. And that's where our overcrowding comes in. So I am ready, since last year, we tried to see how we can solve this problem. But correctional services can't do anything about it in terms of just changes it or whatever the case may be. It must come through the justice system. It must go through our courts. And we have remand detainees that couldn't afford 100 rand bail. And I say again, 100 rand bail. We have about almost 3,000 remand detainees who couldn't afford a bail of 1,000 rand and less. So we are looking at that. I know the inspecting judge, for instance, they're trying to establish a bail fund where you can pay the 1,000 rand and less bail, get the people out of the system. It's about, say, almost 3,000 people less. That will be a number of less overcrowding in our facilities. Then we have about 26,000 foreigners. Now, the foreigners are sentenced as well as awaiting trial. I'm in the process, and I hope next year, this time, there will be good progress. I want to send them back to their countries of origin. It is costing the taxpayer 463 rand per day per prisoner. So it is costing us just over 11 million rand per day for foreigners. But there are some legal constraints. We will have to amend the Act, and I'm in that process. And as I said, it's not a quick fix, but at least I hope next year that we had very good progress. So that's overcrowding. If you come, for instance, when I talk about the budget in itself have different components. The budget for correctional services the last 5 years were cut with 11.7 billion rand. Now that has an enormous impact on the operational side, because in total we have around about 166,000 inmates, and that actually requires that you will have more wardens to ensure security. We have a problem with contraband. You can't curb that by getting sophisticated machinery at our entrances, but it's cost money. The cell phone issue in our jails is a huge problem. You get criminals continuing with their criminal activities even while they're in jail. So you can have signal blockers, but it must be a sophisticated signal blocker that you do not affect the surrounding community, blocking their signals as well. But it's costing money. For instance, parolees. There is a bracelet, the ankle bracelet, very sophisticated, that will immediately indicate if the parolee, for instance, uses alcohol or even drugs. And you can have better control on that. We need more people, so we can't do it. It also brings us to where I'm on record, what I said, I want to enhance the self-sufficiency of correctional services.
Actually, you know, the ahead of our conversation, we asked some of our viewers to send their questions to you. And one of them was that, actually, it related to the self-sufficiency of, in fact, this person, he says, is there a mechanism to make prisons more self-sustaining? And if so, what is being explored? What are the barriers to implementation beyond just making their own food?
Yes.
Prisoners, I presume.
We have a plan. It is, and it was there, but I want to enhance it. For instance, farming. We have, for instance, for vegetables, we have chickens, we have our milk, we produce meat, we have pigs and everything. And we also enhances and want to get more bakeries to bake bread. At the moment, we have 11 bakeries. One of these days, I will open another one in Westville, in KZN. In the end, we hope to get around about, say, by the end of 27, to have 20 bakeries. Now, just to give an indication that if I look at the self-sufficiency, also we have some textile factories where the inmates are working, making clothes. All the uniforms, for instance, are produced by inmates.
The current ones.
The current ones. My furniture in both my offices, the one in Cape Town and one in Pretoria, all the furniture in my office has been produced and manufactured by inmates, by correctional services itself. So it's much cheaper. But we saved, by doing that, almost 500 million rand annually, to say we can do certain things ourselves. Now, I want to enhance it. I would like to see, say, in 2 years or so, that it's not only 500 million, but 1 billion. So that is what we are busy with.
Yeah, here's what another person says, he says, along the same lines, but let them speak for themselves. They say, please bring back hard labor and decrease their food. What would you say to that? Because there's a feeling that our prisons are too soft on prisoners, like that they are, another person here said, a prisoner can have a right to an education paid for by the state, and yet there could be a child outside who has done nothing wrong, but who cannot get an education or can be educated as far as they want to be because they don't have money. To say that there seems to be a bias towards prisoners, actually.
Yeah. Well, firstly, we must remember that the main aim as well in correctional services is rehabilitation. We must ensure in the end that we have successful reintegration of inmates in society. Say, for instance, a criminal has been sentenced for 10 years. After 10 years, you cannot keep that person in our prisons. He or she will go out into the community. And we have an obligation to see whatever we can do to rehabilitate them. And that's why you have these programs, educational programs, that when, for instance, they go out of jail, that there's an opportunity that they are more skilled to be reintegrated. So that's the first thing. But we must also remember, yes, and I said, people must realize that prisons are not hotels. It's not nice in a prison.
I'm sure a lot of people will agree with you, with the first statement that prisons are not hotels.
Exactly. And when I started my term the 3rd of July last year, you saw people on TikTok and everything on video telling how wonderful it is in jail and everything. We actually took very strict steps, and you don't see it anymore. And we have raids. Just the last week of July, 23 to 29th of July, we had 13 raids confiscating almost 8,000 cell phones in our prisons. We are busy cleaning up. And people must understand, furthermore, for instance, the National Commissioner, he changed the dietary program. Where prisoners, and it must be according to legislation. We must always remember there are legislation that determines that when it comes to food, there must be certain percentage of protein, starch, and all that sort of things. It must be.
They must get a balanced diet.
Exactly. It must be a
balanced.
Which
people outside prison are not guaranteed.
Well, the fact is that is legislation. And what he did is then he cut the ratio of meat. And instead of having meat every day in a 12-day cycle, he reduced it and replaced some of it with soya beans. Now that saved more than 200 million rand annually. So it's not very comfortable in there, and with the overcrowding, it's even worse. And we must remember, you have human rights. I started the debate when I had my budget speech in July, start of July. And I said, we must maybe start again the debate on corporal punishment. But what I meant by
that got everyone talking,
I said, let's talk about it. I know. But I don't say that we must bring it back in our schools. I'm talking about correctional services. And there are certain preconditions. Let's go back, for instance, to the remand detainees. Someone petty theft, stole something in a shop, couldn't afford 500 rand bail. Now, think about it. If a court, it's not that you decide, the court come forward and say, yes, corporal punishment, 3 lashes or 6 lashes or whatever the case may be. A good hiding, and you go out. You continue. Now, I know human rights activists and everybody say it's degenerating and all that sort of things. I want to say today, if you go and look at the conditions of the overcrowding, specifically when it comes to remand detainees. Because you must remember, you're not allowed to mix them with sentenced prisoners. Then it is more degenerated because they get raped on all that sort of things. Now, we must be rational about this. Of course, preconditions, but think about it.
So you still believe that it's something we must consider as a society?
Well, of course, I think we must consider that. And I only see it as one piece of puzzle in a larger puzzle.
How has that gone down among your cabinet colleagues?
Well, interesting, they never discussed it with me. Some of them privately came to me and said, I think we have to discuss this. But if you look...
And the president, what did he say?
Well, I didn't speak to him on the matter. But if you look at social media and the responses, it's overwhelming, positive to say yes. But some people are now going even further and say we must even bring it back in our schools. That's not what I spoke about. I spoke about the correctional service system.
The parole system that we have currently, how well is it working? Because I think that a lot of people are very critical of it, especially when you see parolees going out and reoffending, sometimes killing people, I mean, there's a character recently who was accused of killing a child, and they were actually on parole. How well is the system working? Is it broken? Is it effective? Is it helping us?
Yeah, I won't say it's broken. For sure, there are flaws in the system. And that's why I've mentioned that the parole as also one of the challenges. And we are in the process. In fact, we are planning a summit on the parole and the revision of the parole system in September, where we will invite stakeholders to come forward with proposals to see how we can improve our system. Not everything is, can I say, wrong. And we must not try to reinvent the wheel. We must see how we can better the system. So we're busy in that process. And it's correct. And the people have this justification. But I don't know how much time we have, but can I quickly say, we must understand that there are 52 parole boards. It consists of 6 members, where 4 of the 6 members are from the community. And they must make an assessment and a recommendation. Now, you're quite right. People get parole. As far as I'm concerned, when I became a minister, I said we must look at the risk factor. For instance, all people sentenced to jail for life, the lifers we refer to them, parole can only be approved for them by myself. I'm very strict. If you look at the psychologist reports, psychology reports, for instance, social workers, criminologist reports and everything, I look at what is the chances and the risk factor of reoffending. And if there's an application in my desk and the risk is moderate to high, I refuse to approve parole because I have an obligation, and actually a constitutional obligation, to ensure that the community must be protected against criminals. So how can you allow a person that has a risk, a moderate risk to a high risk of reoffending, to just put him or her back into society? I don't do that.
I wanted to ask you just to pedal back a bit. When you were talking about the red lines or issues that you would find seriously problematic, you mentioned self-determination. Now, what does it entail? Does it include secession from South Africa? Does it include exclusively white areas like Orania? And secondly, would you live in Orania?
Right, firstly, I don't live in Orania, but I've been there many times. But you're asking questions on the side of the political party. I'm not the leader of the Freedom Front Plus anymore. And those questions should be posed to the new leader. But let me say, in the party itself, we say that you have a right of self-determination, and it is determined by Section 235 of the Constitution. So it's a constitutional right. People don't know that. They should go and read Section 235. Exclusively white. Well, I asked someone one day, you say you're referring to this exclusive place and everything. Are you talking about Steyn City? Because it's about 800 hectares with a 10 feet high wall right around it. It's exclusive. How do you see exclusivity? You want to see it only based on white and that. So are we believe in secession? I am on record when I was the leader to say no. Secession is not a way of obtaining self-determination in South Africa. We must follow the road of the Constitution. And that is the road the party should follow. But you should ask the question to Dr. Mulder, who is the new leader.
Okay. I can see how you're kicking the can down the road. That's fine. I wanted to ask, I know you're saying that you're not because of your new responsibilities, you're not the leader of the party anymore. Is the party going to participate in the national dialogue process or not? Have they taken a decision on that?
They still have to decide. I don't know even if they were invited to that. So they will have to take that decision.
Okay. So at the moment, because it's quite close, actually.
Yes, so, it's the 15th of August. But I am not informed, but I presume that they will receive an invitation, and then the party must take the decision.
Well, just before we had a conversation, we started our conversation, you mentioned that you'd just been to Stelfontein. What is happening in Stelfontein? I mean, you used to be a public representative of Stelfontein?
Yes.
And then it went away from the national, it fell below the national radar, and then suddenly there were problems there with illegal mining and all of that, and Stelfontein becomes famous for that.
Yeah, well, it's famous for the wrong reasons. Yeah.
What is happening in Stelfontein?
Okay. What is happening in Stilfontein is that you have the Zamazamas, the illegal miners. You must remember Stilfontein, actually it's a Kosh area. They refer to the Kosh. It's a Klerksdorp, Orkney, Stilfontein, and Hartbeesfontein. That's a Kosh area. There are many mines around there, gold mines. And what happened, you have these mines, they are not operational anymore by big companies. So you get the Zamazamas. Now this problem is coming a long way. Already in 2009, because you must remember I live in Stilfontein. In 2009, I stood up in Parliament in the Portfolio Committee of Police and said, the community members came to me and they're complaining about the Zamazamas. They say when we go to work, they come, they rape our women, they rape our daughters, and please, you must act. I've mentioned it many times. In fact, I was quite surprised when I stood up in the committee. I spoke about the Zamazamas, and then the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee asked me, what is a Zamazama? He didn't even know what is a Zamazama. So I continuously warned about this problem. But again, corruption. People told me over the years, it's no use the police come with a raid because they are warned before the time. Normally it happened at one stage that the police came in the first week of December. And like they said to me, at that stage, the majority of the Zamazamas were Lesotho members, or can I say citizens. And they leave by the start of December, they go back home. And they start again in January. So there was, and I think there's still a lot of corruption. We saw with this whole operation that there were 4 police officials that's actually now been charged assisting one of the keys, can I say, people in the Zamazama network. So it is not good for the community. They say to me, and I say community leaders, specifically from Kuma, came to me and said, please, you must assist us. So at the moment, it is much better. We know that quite a lot of them came out and arrested and everything, but it will start again. They will have to keep up the whole situation, ensuring that they do ensure that illegal, or can I say mine workers, and they are also illegal immigrants in South Africa. They should act swiftly and send them back.
But what has happened to Stilfontein, the town itself? Will it ever come alive again as a thriving place?
Well, it is alive. No, Stilfontein is alive. What happened is actually in 1989, 1990, when the Stilfontein mine closed down. And what then happened, were about 550 houses that went empty. And then some business people came forward from KZN. They had made a very good deal with the mine, where they bought all those houses, they renovated them, and they sold them with a good profit. So Stilfontein at the moment is alive, and it's a place where you live. It's not, doesn't have this, can I say, vibrant industrial area or something. But in my case, I'm about 5 kilometers from the mall. So everything is close by. And specifically young people, they started to move into Stilfontein. To give you an idea, in Stilfontein you will get a good house. And I was mayor of Stilfontein in 1988. And there's a regulation, or there was at that stage, and it's changed now, that if you build any house in Stilfontein, it must have a tile roof. You're not allowed to use a sink for a roof. So there are good houses there. And so young people, you can now go and buy a very good 3-bedroom house for about, say, 700,000-800,000 rand.
And what industry sustains, or what industries sustain the town?
Well, they're usually in Klaarstop itself. In the town, as I said, they don't have this vibrant industrial area. But the other surprise is, and I spoke to people myself, there are people traveling from Stilfontein to Johannesburg every day. Driving to Joburg, coming back on the N12. And they say, one woman said to me, Dr. Groenewald, you don't know how it feels to be living in Johannesburg with 8 to 10 feet walls around you, and your children cannot play freely. In Stilfontein, you can do it. You have people still walking for exercises. So there's no crisis in terms of when it comes to people living in Stilfontein. Of course, they have the normal criminality and all that sort of things, but less in a certain sense. It's a close-knitted community, working together when it comes to crime watches and everything like that. So you won't easily find a house at the moment in Stilfontein.
You know, when you came in here, you greeted us all in Afrikaans, and then you switched back to English. In Parliament, you use both languages. Do you speak any other languages?
No, unfortunately not. At least I can greet you in Setswana to say, Dumela wana ukai. Okay. Those sort of things. But it is sometimes frustrated. I so much wished that I could do that. But if you lived in the KZN or in the Free State, you would have been able to speak, or even the Eastern Cape, either isiZulu or Sesotho or that sort of things. But the Tswanas, they decided to speak rather Afrikaans. And unfortunately, I would very much love to also be fluent in some of one of the other languages.
That is all the time we have for our conversation with Dr. Pieter Groenewald, the former leader of the Freedom Front Plus, who is the current Minister of Correctional Services. My name is Mike Siluma, and until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and let's do good for our country.